Today on Mother Mayhem.
Of course, you are totally bullshit and mad right now. Of course you are. It's re-traumatizing and dysregulating to witness someone's meltdown, to be on the receiving end of said meltdown, and then be paralyzed in your ability to protect those you love from that kind of abuse. Welcome back to Mother Mayhem, the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast for Daughters. I'm your host, Heather Gray. If you haven't heard me say this on the show before, please allow me to say it right now. Nothing makes a narcissist act worse than a wedding, a funeral, a holiday, or a significant family event. And this episode illustrates, unfortunately, how very true that is. Also, you're going to hear how truly painful it can be. These are the events where the narcissist acts out, does or says the narcissistic things, and their impact has ripples and waves, not just affecting you daughters, which of course is awful enough, but also impacts everyone around you. And because these narcissistic meltdowns happen at such significant times, they become painful memories woven into that day. The impact of those times are going to reverberate for everyone anytime that day is thought of or recounted. Today's listener, now I've named her Frankie. I recently read the book The Women by Kristen Hanna, and I adored it. But it is a tough book for me to recommend to all of you because it's a fictional story about Frankie McGrath, a nurse who goes to Vietnam during the war. And you can't have a story about the Vietnam War without also talking about trauma. So it's a little tricky for me to actually recommend this book on a trauma recovery podcast because I think all of you think about trauma often enough. You don't need to be reading about it in your free time. And that's what I said more than a few times to myself as I was reading it. What was I thinking picking up a book about Vietnam when I talk about trauma for a living? But alas, I just love the book anyway. It is a love letter to women, to friendship, to falling down, to getting back up and doing it all over again. And the book just really moved me. Frankie, the character, moved me. And Frankie, today, our listener, really moved me. But check out the book at your own discretion with that warning label attached. Now, everyone, we are really fortunate because Frankie was willing to record herself sharing her story, and I know how much of these personally recorded episodes have come to mean to you, and they mean a lot to me too. After listening to her story, I asked for Frankie's permission to trim the story a little bit for the sake of the podcast. And you guys have heard me in this place before as I work to find the balance between holding space, honoring truth and story, while also considering how to keep the conversation focused for the sake of the podcast. The stories shared on this show, they matter to me so very much, and it is always going to be of utmost importance to me that I honor them. Always. Sharing your story and speaking your truth is a critical part of your recovery, and I take this part of my job really, really seriously. I know the risks I run when I'm trimming a story for the sake of the podcast, but I also have to balance that all out with the goal for the show, the recovery part. That's the main reason we're all gathering together every week. And Frankie's story, as you hear, brings up a lot that she and her family have to recover from. And I want the emphasis to be on her and on that, and not just on her mom and what her mom has done. And I know you guys trust me, and I hope I always have your trust on the aspect of the show. And I'm always going to be transparent with you and with our listeners who submit their stories so that everyone's always on the same page as much as possible. So here's how we tackled Frankie's story. First, you're going to hear Frankie introduce herself and you're going to hear her share her story. Now, Clark, with her editing magic, is going to beep out some of the names of Frankie's family members to protect them and Frankie's privacy. I made the decision to delete a part of Frankie's narration that I thought would be easier if I simply summarized it for you here without actually taking away from Frankie's experience, her truth, or her trauma. So, remember at the beginning of the episode when I told you that big events make narcissists worse? Well, Frankie's mom had a meltdown of epic proportions on a maternity ward. Frankie's brother and girlfriend were about to become parents for the first time. Frankie had been asked by them to be a birth support for them while her niece was being born. Prior to learning that her brother and his girlfriend were to become parents, everyone had had plans to go to a family wedding. When the due date coincided with the wedding, Frankie, her brother, and his girlfriend made the obvious decision not to go to the wedding. Frankie's mother, on the other hand, was still going to go to the wedding, even though it was out of the country, regardless of the due date, even though she didn't have much of a relationship with the people getting married. Frankie's mom's intention was to be at the wedding instead of at the birth of her grandchild, much to everyone's dismay, confusion, and hurt. So first, listen in as Frankie introduces herself and then what happened once everyone was on the maternity ward. All right, deep breath, everyone. Here's Frankie. I'm going to find you on the other side.
I've been listening a lot to your podcast. It's helped me tremendously in so many different ways, kind of process this journey I've been going on with my mother and trying to heal from everything she's done to me. I feel silly saying all of this out loud, and it's probably going to be a lot of rambling, so I'm sorry in advance. But my mother reached a point where I want to go no contact with her, but for a whole list of reasons, I can't right now. I guess I'll give you a little backstory. But so essentially, me and my husband bought a house before the housing market went crazy in 2015. And it wasn't like in the best neighborhood, but it was ours. And I loved that house. And a couple years after we had bought in the house, my mother ended up purchasing a huge 5-acre piece of property with 2 houses on it. And at that time, I was pregnant with my son, I just had my son. Sorry, he was a little over a year at that time. But I shortly became pregnant with my daughter after that, and she had convinced us to move into the house because it was, the front house on the piece of property because it was in a better neighborhood and the house was bigger and we were expecting a second child and a better school district, the whole 9 yards. And so I agreed, even though I knew it might be a bad idea, but she was on her best behavior and I thought that maybe she'd be a little bit different, but it just has gotten worse and worse and worse over the years, and it's finally hit kind of a peak. I've never seen her this bad before. She's never treated me this bad before. So what happened recently that was kind of the plateau of this. Sorry, let me back up just a little bit. The reason why I can't go no contact is because she convinced us to sell our house when the housing market went back up. And we made quite a bit of money off of it, but the money is no longer there. We don't have it. We put it into different 401ks and spent a lot of it. And now we can't afford to buy a house. And now I'm stuck living in this house. She gives us a really good deal on rent, but I want so badly to just run away from her and go no contact after the very last ordeal that she had. So basically, my dad died when I was 8, and he was the parent that was safe for me. And he would kind of protect me in a lot of ways from her abuse up until I was about 8 years old. And then he died, and obviously I didn't have that protection anymore, and it was just game on for her. She ended up getting pregnant with my little brother and marrying my stepdad, who's now still in the picture. And I love my little brother. He's 10 years younger than me, and I basically raised him for the majority because my mom couldn't be bothered with us. We were just too much, I guess, for her. I don't know. My parents owned a small business, and she was just a workaholic, and everything came before us. Never showed up to any of our stuff, typical narcissistic mother, emotionally unavailable mother. And so I was essentially like a parent to my little brother since I was 10 years older than him. And we're extremely close now. And yeah, I mean, she's done so many things over the years. Like, basically, I'm the problem in the family, according to her. I'm a drama queen. I create all this drama and things when in reality it's just, her like sabotaging my wedding or sabotaging the births of both of my children, or I actually miscarried a third child and my body wouldn't let go of it. And I was like 14 weeks pregnant and I had to go to the hospital, and I chose to be sedated and have a DNC. And I actually ended up developing postpartum psychosis from this whole event. And she said that I was being dramatic and I needed to get over it because so many people lose babies and that I have two. And like, just the list could go on and on and on. But this was the worst thing I think she's ever done to me by far. So my little brother, he got engaged, and him and his longtime girlfriend got pregnant, and they were going to have a baby. And they told us this past holiday season on Thanksgiving, and everybody was super excited.
Sorry to interrupt you, Frankie. I just, for the listening audience, wanted to just communicate transparently that where you're hearing me now is where I had edited out Frankie recounting that part of the story. Thanks so much. Okay, back to Frankie.
And my mom really stresses her out, And so one day we were sitting down talking about, I was asking them, like, so as a support person for you, like, what can I do to assist you guys? What would you like me there to be helpful with? Just if there's any specifics you guys have. Obviously, I'll be there to do whatever you need and be helpful in any way. But is there anything like specific you had in mind that you would like me to do? And she said, yeah, actually, on the off chance that I do go into labor before your parents leave for Greece, I need you to keep your mom away from me, essentially, while she's in labor, because she really stresses her out. And she just did not want to deal with that because my mom had kind of sabotaged both of my births and made them about her and a lot of that. So anywho, she has to have an emergency C-section just a few days before my parents leave for Greece. And it was really scary. She was at the hospital. My brother called me panicking. He was working far out at that time. I was the closest one to at that point. And so my brother called me and he's like, can you please go to the emergency room and be with me? She's scared. She has to have an emergency C-section. Her blood pressure is like 170. They were suspecting she had preeclampsia or something. I'm trying to get there as fast as I can, but can you get there first? Because you're the closest. I said, absolutely. So I hop in my car, get there. I'm sitting there with her. Eventually my brother comes and they're talking about, are we going to give you this emergency C-section like in an hour, or is it going to be in a couple hours or tomorrow morning? They knew within 24 hours though this baby had to come. They were trying to monitor, bring down her blood pressure. And all of a sudden my brother looks on his phone, because we all track each other as a family for various reasons. My brother goes hunting and all sorts of different things. So we all kind of follow each other on Find My Friends. And he saw that my mom was like 10 minutes away from the hospital. And because she had found out through my dad, and because he had told my dad about it anyways. And I knew, okay. And I looked, he's like, I don't want to deal with mom. And he's like, I do not want her in this hospital. I do not want her in this room. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, you already have really high blood pressure. This is the last thing you need to be dealing with. And I was like, but lucky for you guys, like, that's one of the reasons why I'm here. So like, don't worry about it. I got this. So I immediately went out and spoke to the nurses and kind of told them the situation. And we came up with this plan, yada, yada. My mom ended up getting up to the labor and delivery floor, but they told her she couldn't go in the room while I was waiting to get her C-section. She didn't go back to pre-op yet. She was just in the room being monitored because there was like a 2-person limit. And there was this whole thing they made up so that my mom couldn't go back there. And they come in and tell us. And I was like, it's fine. I'll go back there and deal with her. And so I go back and I sit in the waiting room with her and I try talking to her and she's just being rude, has an attitude, being snippy, being short. I expected that. I was like, whatever. So I just get on my phone and I'm like scrolling through my phone after I had made a couple failed attempts to make small talk with her and she was not interested. So I just get on my phone and all of a sudden she puts her phone down and was like, oh, the weirdest thing happened to me today. I spoke to who is an elder relative of ours who I hadn't seen in a while. I was worried about her. I usually was in contact with her. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad you talked to her because I've been trying to get in touch with her. And I was worried about her. And I was like, it's so weird. She hasn't called me. I wonder what's going on. Is everything okay? And how my mom was talking, I should have known that she was trying to bait me, but I didn't see it right away. And she says along the lines of essentially that she knows why she's not talking to me. My elderly aunt who's like 80 and is the sweetest thing in the world. And I know would not say any of these things that my mother was about to say. But basically she said that she's not talking to me because I caused too much drama and I don't know when to shut my mouth and blah, 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 which I have absolutely no idea where she's pulling this from. And then I realized she was trying to bait me. And I realized that like this tension was growing and she was just being really snippy with me and trying to get me to react. And I'm trying my hardest not to react, especially because of the situation we're in and we're on this labor and delivery ward and my brother's about to have his first child. And so I just like very calmly looked at her and I said, listen, I know you've been in kind of a bad mood since you've gotten here and that's fine, but you've been really snippy with me and let's just not do this right now. Can we just pause this? We can continue this conversation another time, but for right now, let's just stop because, and this is probably what triggered her, I said, I didn't realize it as I was saying it, but looking back, this is kind of, once I said this, she freaked out. I said, this isn't about me. This isn't about you. This is about her and the baby. And I don't want to fight with you right now. This isn't appropriate. And she like lost her mind. She lost her mind. Her behavior after that was the most hurtful, just like dumbfounding. It was so bizarre. I've never seen her act this inappropriately before. She starts screaming at me after I say that, telling me that I needed to shut the fuck up. She's screaming this on a labor and delivery ward. Screaming at me that I needed to shut the fuck up and that I didn't even need to be there, that she's the mother and that there was no need for me to be there and that I needed to leave. And I was creating drama, which I was not. I was just setting a boundary saying, let's not do this right now. And I looked at her and said, asked me to be here. I'm supposed to be here. They asked me to be here and I'm not leaving. And I said, but you are very upset right now, I can tell. And this is not really the time or place for this. You need to lower your voice. This is inappropriate because she's screaming at me at this point, like literally screaming at me. And the nurses started walking by, giving me an eye, like, do we need to kick her out? Because they knew that, my mom, there was issues from the get-go with my mom being there, did not want her there to begin with. And at all costs, she was to be kept away from. And I kind of gave the nurse like a little like no and a hand wave like I got this because I did not want my brother to get embarrassed by my mom's behavior. And so I'm trying really hard to calm her down and I'm not raising my voice. I keep repeating like this is not appropriate behavior. Please lower your voice. Like let's not do this right now. And she's just screaming at me, yelling, telling me to shut the fuck up. I'm telling her that she needs to stop and realize how she's behaving and take accountability for her actions and that this was not appropriate. I asked her if she wanted to go for a walk outside. She then again screamed at me, telling me that she's not leaving and that I should go. And just like this really, she was just trying so hard for me to get upset and yell and scream at her, but I was not. I was being very calm. I was super proud of myself because normally she can get me to respond and get upset. But I just knew that this was not an appropriate situation. So after she's screaming at me to shut the fuck up and I'm telling her she needs to calm down, at one point she starts putting her fingers in her ears like a toddler throwing a tantrum and goes, la, 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 I can't hear you. I'm not listening to you. Shut the fuck up. Like getting progressively louder and louder and louder. She's literally screaming at the top of her lungs at this point. The nurses are standing outside of the waiting room and my brother hears her from down the hall and he comes into the room. And he looks at, sorry, I forgot this part. Back up just a little bit before he came in. I look at her and I go, you're acting like a child right now. This is really embarrassing, Mom. Like, you please stop. I'm begging her at this point. And I go, I wish you could see how you're acting right now. I wish I could just record you and show you how you're acting right now because this is so wildly inappropriate. And I'm like so dumbfounded. She's never behaved this inappropriately in public before, ever. Not like this. Normally she's really sneaky with her like narcissistic abuse, but this was just like she let her guard down. She just was reactive and she immediately, this is like the most disturbing part of it. As soon as I said that, she got like weirdly calm and sat down and pulled her phone out and started recording me. And she got this really weird sing-songy voice, which I'm gonna like tell you, like I'm gonna mock her in a minute and kind of show you how she was speaking. And it was really kind of creepy and eerie how she started behaving. She starts recording me and I realize it and I go, are you recording me right now? And she goes, me? Yeah, I'm recording you. I'm just trying to show everybody how crazy you're behaving. And I'm just a good grandma sitting here waiting for my granddaughter to be born and you're causing all this drama and everybody needs to see how crazy you're being right now. And at this point, I'm still not yelling. I'm not screaming. I actually never did yell or scream at any point, but I could feel my hands start to shake and my voice starts to get shaky because this is just so disturbing to me. This behavior is so disturbing and how quick she like flipped this switch and how she's just like, it was like so, it's so bizarre to me and I can't even explain. Anyways, and that whole interaction probably lasted like 10 seconds, but my brother had heard her yelling prior to this. So he comes and I'm asking her, Mom, please stop recording me. Please put down your phone. And I just have my hands kind of in my head in my hands and I'm just like looking down and I'm trying to take some deep breaths and I can feel myself shaking. And my brother hears her screaming from down the hall. So he's like walking up and he walks in and he's like, Mom, what is going on? And I'm sure one of the nurses probably went and told him too what was going on. And he's like, Mom, what is going on? And like, I literally just feel like she had like emotionally manipulated and abused me and kind of like pulled out this weird surprise attack that I've never seen her do before where she like flipped her behavior and started recording me. It was just really fucking weird. Like the only words I could gather to even come out was like, she's recording me and she won't stop. And I told him, I'm so sorry. I was trying really hard to make it so that none of this got to you guys. Like none of this drama got to you guys. And my mom immediately like shoots up and she starts sobbing, which she never cries, but it was like somehow she just started crying. I've seen her cry like 3 times in my entire life. And suddenly she starts sobbing and telling my brother that I made her behave this way, which is completely ridiculous because you can't make anybody like, it's just, oh my God, so stupid. Telling my brother, I made her do this and I was creating all this drama and she's just trying to be supportive. And my brother knows her number, like clearly, otherwise he wouldn't have had one of my roles be to prevent her and all this bullshit from reaching them during this time. And I was feeling a lot of shame that I wasn't able to control her and guilt that he was dealing with this on this day and it was my job to stop it. And I felt horrible about that. My brother knows how she is and he looked at her and said, Mom, I think you should just leave. Because this was like a life or death situation for his fiance and the baby. And she loses her mind and starts screaming even more like, you love your sister more than me. And I just turned around and looked at her and just pointed right at her. And I said, don't you dare do that to him. Do not guilt him right now. Do not do this. And she's like screaming over and over about how important this is to her and how she wants to be there for all of this. And mind you, my brother had kicked her out at this point, told her she needed to leave, and she's still yelling about this as she's like walking around the delivery ward, and the nurses are telling her she needs to go. And I'm walking her to the elevator. I'm trying to push her towards, not physically push her, but herd her towards the elevator because she's yelling at me. So I'm like moving over there so she'll move over there. And she's going on and on about how important this was to her and how I'm ruining this for her. And I shouldn't have said this to her, but I just couldn't fucking help it. Because I'd remained so calm. I just looked at her dead in the eye and I said, so it's important to you now, but you were 100% willing to miss it and go to Greece for your deceased husband's nephew's wedding that you don't even have a relationship with. But you were so ready to miss it, but now it's important to you. And she just got really silent and just got in the elevator and stormed off. And that was on June 5th. So it's been over a month now. She went to Greece, hasn't spoken to me, hasn't reached out. She reached out to my brother and she's been calling him every so often, but really has no interest in the child. My niece, she's perfect and beautiful, but has no interest, and that's hurt my brother a lot. She hasn't really asked for any pictures or anything. She did come visit one time in the hospital, begged her, and she refused. It was just a whole thing. I realize now I'm rambling for almost 30 minutes. I'm so sorry. My question for you is I'm going through a lot of anger with this because now has she not only hurt me on so many levels throughout my life, but now she's hurting my brother, who was always pretty much the golden child and never really got this abuse. But he witnessed her do it to other people, but never to him. And now she's doing it to him, and I'm even more angry. I don't think I've ever been so angry in my life. Because I just am having a really hard time understanding how a mother can treat her children like this. And my question for you is, does it ever get better? Sorry. Will I ever stop being angry? And how? How can I stop being angry? I've been seeing a therapist for 3 years, and I've definitely done a lot of work, and I've healed a bunch, but I also feel like I've ripped all those wounds wide open again, trying to heal them. And I just wish that I could never speak to her again, but I can't again because of this financial situation and whatever. Stupid housing market. And I just feel like I'm never gonna get over the fact that she just doesn't love me, that she is horrible to me, that she hates me. And now she's taking it out on my kids, and which I limit contact with them and her severely because of it. But is this ever gonna feel better? And I feel like, I know when somebody dies, it never stops hurting, but over time it gets a little bit better, you know? But I'm going on 36 this coming up year, and it's still, like, my mom, how she treats me still hurts so bad, and it's so raw that I am scared that I'll never get over it. And I just need some help with how to navigate and heal from this, and how to stop being so angry, because I'm so angry. I don't even know if that's like a good question. I don't know. Anyways, I'm sure you probably are sick of hearing about this and my babbling, so I'm sorry. Anyways, yeah, I love your podcast. I listen to it religiously now, and I'm sure you have a million submissions, and so who knows if mine will ever even get heard or read, or you'll ever get a chance to write me back or send me a voice memo back or whatever. But on the off chance that you do, I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, Frankie, how incredibly awful. Of course, you are totally bullshit and mad right now. Of course you are. It's re traumatizing and dysregulating to witness someone's meltdown, to be on the receiving end of said meltdown, and then be paralyzed in your ability to protect those you love from that kind of abuse. I'm, to be honest, glad you're angry. You should be angry. It's probably easier for you on a lot of levels to be angrier for your brother than you are for yourself. But the targeting and bullying you've received from her, the mocking and the disregard for your own birth trauma and mental anguish you experienced after a god awful miscarriage, yeah, Frankie, get angry. Get good and mad. You, my friend, deserve your anger. Your anger is actually also your friend. It's the part of you that's recognizing what you never had and what you always deserved. There is nothing about this that you shouldn't be angry about. I hate that this has happened to you and your brother's family. I hate it. I also recognize, though, that anger can sometimes feel all consuming. It can have its rightful place, but it can also feel like being chronically agitated or chronically dysregulated. And it can feel sometimes like you have no control. You're likely feeling this in your body, like a hum or a buzzing that can feel really intrusive, and that might be making you feel trapped. It can also make you even more mad because you're thinking about your mom all the time when you want to be thinking about your family and your brother's family. All of this makes sense to me. You make sense to me. Now, all of this went down in June 2024 for the future listening audience. And by the time this episode is published, it's going to be the end of August. And maybe some of your anger will have dissipated naturally by that time. Maybe you find already that it's taking up less space, or maybe not. I got your message while I was away, and maybe you are as good and mad now as you were then. If 3 months later you're still mad, it's okay. We here at Mayhem, we have you. We've got you. We believe you. Here's what's important for you to understand right away. After a lifetime of trauma and abuse by your mom, and now being financially held hostage by her, you were re traumatized. You weren't just triggered. You didn't have a reaction. You didn't just get into a fight with your mom. You, my friend, were re traumatized. And your reaction to what has happened is totally normal and understandable. Remember what I've said so many times on the show. An abnormal reaction to a series of abnormal events is a normal behavior. It is normal to be this mad, to be this rageful. Now, I can't recall offhand if I've ever explained in any kind of depth on the show before what re traumatization is, and I've used that phrase a couple of times. So let me just take a moment right now to kind of dig into the psychobabble of it all right here. Re traumatization happens when you experience a situation or an interaction that triggers really intense feelings or memories of a past traumatic event. So, for you daughters of narcissistic or otherwise emotionally limited moms, your moms often criticized and belittled you. So, your mom, or when your mom or someone else treats you similarly in adulthood, all of those painful memories and feelings are going to come back, and you start finding yourselves reliving those moments. So, in these absurd moments with your mom on the maternity floor, you were receiving her abuse, feeling trapped in your ability to protect your brother and girlfriend from her abuse, and you were navigating the rush of feelings that come to the surface as you realize that in some ways you were there again with her, but also, like you said, she was next level worse this time. All of that becomes a lot to manage and deal with. And of course, it makes you angry. Of course, it does. I hear really clearly that you want to be less angry. And I know that being angry can be and feel really disruptive. But first, you have to do this part. You have to get yourself and allow yourself to be this good and angry. Otherwise, you're going to run the risk of repeating the past where you were stuck with her narrative, unable to defend yourself, and had to sit there and just take it. But once you acknowledge your anger and validate it, you get to decide what you want to do with it, and you get to decide what you want to do about it. Now, remember, I've said this on the show a couple of times, I think. Our feelings, they're just energy inside our bodies. We get to use that energy however we like. We can use it to make us bigger, or we can use it to make it smaller. So, considering the energy you're feeling in your body, what do you want to do? What do you need right now? And if you have never asked yourself this, you might not know. You might need some time with trial and error to see what works. Me, I enjoy movement that pushes that kind of energy out. I like strength training for this more than I like cardio, but I know a lot of people, when they get good and mad, they like cardio. Every once in a while, I'll start stomping up and down stairs or something like that. But ultimately, I find for me, I really like that sensation of having a weight in my hand and then pushing that energy out and getting that energy out. Now, Clark, don't listen to me when I say this, but I don't like cleaning when I'm mad. Chores, well, they're just not my thing. But some of you are in Clark's camp, right? And you like decluttering and cleaning when you're good and mad. I myself, I have a playlist that won't surprise you guys, but I have a playlist that I've saved for moments when I just need to release that excess energy. I like taking a shower. I don't always write very well when I'm angry. I usually need to be a little bit more over an event before full thoughts can come to me. But for the past year that I've been doing this podcast as a resource, I have been able to draft Instagram posts or ideas for the show when they come to me in kind of a rush of energy. You, Frankie, might find relief by giving your energy to your brother, his girlfriend, or your niece, but find that outlet for yourself. You might not find the one that works for you immediately, but keep trying, and eventually you're going to land on something that's effective for you. But Frankie, I also think it's important here that we talk about how much you feel held hostage in your housing situation. I can hear how trapped you feel and how stuck. I also think I hear that you're angry with yourself for believing that she could be different, for listening to her, and for getting trapped in your mom's web. I hear that regret. And of course you have regret. Of course you do. Of course you, in wise mind, raging mad, wishes you had never said yes to her, never listened to her. But that's you in summer 2024, with all of the years of experience and this most recent event having had happened. Of course, now in 2024, you regret this choice. However, when you shared that part of the story and that point of the story, first with me and then with other daughters listening, I'm certain if you were in that room with me and with them, you would hear two different reactions. First, that collective, no, don't trust her. She's baiting you. Of course, on the outside, listening in, we hear that and we think that. But also, Frankie, what you would also very, very likely hear is, yep, I get it. That would have happened to me too. Because what daughter of a narcissistic mother doesn't want to believe that their mom might be able to change, that she has changed? What daughter listening hasn't secretly, at some moment in time, hoped that this time would be different? What daughter wouldn't take a chance on rewriting the ending of their mother daughter relationship? So many listeners of this show, Frankie, would know you in that moment, know what you were feeling, and they would relate to what it feels like when you start to get your hopes up. It's so relatable, Frankie. You feel like you were played because she played you. She played on your desire for your family. She played on the idea of what a move would offer better financial security and that you would be offering your kids a better life. She played on the idea that you guys could be better than you were when you were a kid. Of course, you wanted to believe that. Of course, you did. And also hormones. She probably played on hormones. We have all invested in things that we regret on the off chance that things might get better. It's why we stay in relationships too long, why we give second or third chances, why we impulsively buy things, why we ignore reason. Because what hurts when it hurts, we think that thing will make it better. Now, I wish I knew offhand for you which episodes we've had where we've talked about financial abuse and how daughters have been held hostage, because I know we have a few of these episodes. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. But this isn't just you who this happens to. And yes, narcissists, in an effort for control in their relationships, they wheel and deal like this because they can't do the actual relating part of a relationship. So many women listening, Frankie, are saying, me too, in this moment. This could have happened to me, or this did happen to me. So many daughters relate to the wish that it might get better. So please show yourself some grace. Please forgive yourself. And then, Frankie, I urge you to really check your work on this. So many daughters write mistakes off as being stuck with their fate. So many daughters assume they're trapped with no financial way out. But if I were you, I would get a few extra opinions from a neutral party who can run your numbers and see what they see. You may very well, in fact, be trapped, or you may, in fact, be navigating natural consequences that would come from moving out. You might be navigating a need to pinch pennies. You might be maneuvering around the wrath of your mother if you were to move out. You may be, looking at all of the things that could happen and what you would stand to lose by moving out. And you may decide to stay because those consequences would be worse than staying. And that's okay. That too, I understand. All of these scenarios are unpleasant. But this is also where you're going to be able to find a little more of your own power when you look at your options and you choose the one that you can most live with. And that's what's going to help you gain more control. You can move out, but you are choosing not to because of X, Y, or Z. However, again, if you can get a financial person, an objective friend, or someone you trust to look at your situation and play devil's advocate to ensure that you really are financially trapped and that there are no other options, I would really urge you to do that, because trauma brain might be running your show right now. It might be limiting your own view of options. This is about your life, where you live, and how you live. And something that crucial, I think, is worth a second or third opinion before you resign yourself to this fate of being trapped on your mom's property and trapped in her world. I hear your grief and I hear your pain. And I hear your hopelessness in this. I hear, Frankie, how badly you want to fast forward to this place of acceptance where you can just accept that this is who your mom is and how she is so it doesn't hurt so much. But Frankie, it is physically impossible to get over something that is currently still happening. You're still under her thumb. You're under her control in a lot of ways, and you're seeing the impact she has on your kids, on your marriage, on your brother, on his family. She's leaving a mark, Frankie, but also it's still happening. You're not yet in the past with this. You can't get over something that's still a part of your present and still happening. But what you can do is get a good look at your external boundaries and your internal boundaries and protect yourself as much as possible. Now, internal boundaries are the boundaries you tell and decide yourself, but you don't need to include your mom in it. It might be something like, I'm not speaking to her about anything other than the rental agreement or things pursuant to the property. You might kind of go gray rock or vanilla when talking about anything else, not sharing personal information, not including her in on the goings on of your family. These are the kinds of boundaries that you don't necessarily need to announce. You quietly know them for yourselves and yet act accordingly. Other boundaries might be more external, and those are the boundaries that usually do have to come with some form of communication, like a decision that you might make that she's never alone with your kids, or you're only ever going to meet with her outside so you're not trapped in a room with her. My experience with people who are being held hostage in some kind of way by their moms is that they don't set boundaries and they don't take that control because they're so afraid of what their mom might do if they set the boundary. And this is where I have to remind you that you have zero control over what your mom will do. At any point in time, she can kick you all out simply because it rained 2 days in a row. She can kick you out for any reason. So if you further hold yourself hostage with her because of what she may or may not do, if you A, B, or C, I need to gently remind you that you don't have any control over that. All you can control here right now is what you're going to allow in your own life. And then going forward, you have to remember this is who she is. This is what she does. This is how she moves through the world. Given that, who do you want to be in response to that? Make decisions and set boundaries regarding your mom from that place. You're going to say to yourself, my mom is a narcissist. She is going to do and say narcissistic things. The only thing predictable about her is her unpredictability. Given that this is who she is, I have decided that I am not going to, or I am going to, A, B, or C. Grief is, of course, going to come up. You're going to be so sad for you that this is true about you, that you will never have the mom you always wanted and always deserved, that this is true about your brother. Your kids are losing out on a grandmother. Your brother and his family is experiencing that loss. You are going to allow those feelings to come to the surface. You're going to allow yourself to feel them, and then you are going to give yourself permission to release them. But Frankie, I don't want this to be where your conversation with yourself ends. Your mom was unwilling, unable to meet your needs. But just because she can't meet them doesn't mean that you don't deserve to have them met. When daughters ask me about recovering or moving through their grief, they often feel like they're asking me how to live with this large, open, gaping wound in their life. Like their grief is this bottomless, empty well that they have to move around. And it's true for a little while, but it's also not always true. You get to ask yourself, now that I have been affected by this, now that I am clear on how I've been affected by this, what do I need and how do I get that need met? Who can meet that need? Who can mother me in that way? Where can I receive nurturance? Where can I be seen, loved, mentored, or listened to? Now, if immediate people come to mind for this, allow them to fill that need. Consciously allow them to heal your mother wound. Give that wound permission to heal and to be filled with love by someone who's capable of doing that for you. Your mother couldn't meet that need. It does not mean you are not deserving of having that need be met. Right now, you're a little bit at war with your feelings. You're probably by now tired of having them and of feeling them so incredibly intensely. And that's okay. I understand that. Your feelings, they make sense to me. You can feel them, see them through, find acceptance, identify what you need and what will help, and allow yourself to have those needs met. Allow yourself access to the things that bring you relief. Your mom created a shit show. It was traumatizing, abusive, and its effects are reverberating, but now you get to lay the path. Who do you want to be, and how do you want to move through the world, given that this is who your mother is? Who do you want to be in response to her? You have some control here, and once you're able to see it, find it and hold on to it, you're going to see that you get to decide what happens next. I'm so glad that you took the time to share your story with me. I've really enjoyed getting to know you through your story, and I certainly hope you have some nuggets here that you can use and take away that are going to help. I also know you're not the only one trying to figure out what the heck to do next after your mom has a narcissistic meltdown. Knowing that you are all in this together is the main reason why I am building Tuesday Group for Daughters. If you're in a situation like this and you'd like to not just get my take, but the take of other daughters or the support from other women on the path, I hope you find your way to Tuesday Group. You can learn all about it with a link in the show notes. We'd really love to have you there. You're in a community of women around the world who are in this with you, and I for sure am in it with you too. Bye for now. I do hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you have a question you'd like me to consider for the show, please do email me over at heather@daughtersnpd.com. You are always welcome to share your story or questions by recording yourself using the voice app on your phone. For best recording quality, please do record directly into your phone without using headphones or Bluetooth speakers. We're building an incredible community as well over on Instagram, and I'd love to see you over there too. You can find us at Daughters NPD. Lastly, if you love what you've been hearing here on Mayhem and have found the show helpful in your own trauma recovery, please do consider becoming a Mother Mayhem sponsor by purchasing Simple Scripts for Saying Hard Things. It's a resource I created that provides the right words for the hard conversations, and it covers life, love, and work. You'll find a link for that in the show notes. If you know another woman who needs this conversation in her life, please do share the show with her. Your reviews and social shares help spread the word, and I hope you'll consider doing so. Special thanks to Heather Clark for editing the show. She's in my head and knows what I meant to say when the words come out backwards. Thanks so much for your time today. As always, I'm in it with you. Bye for now.